How's it going, everyone? Welcome to another video on the channel. I'm Geminal FIFA, and today I'm going to be walking you guys through my controller settings. Now, this video isn't me telling you guys what to use and what not to use. What I'm doing is basically just showing you guys what I personally prefer using, the thought process behind it, the advantages and disadvantages of the control settings that I use. If you try it or it happens to resonate with you, then that's fine, thumbs up. But if you try it and it's not something you like and it's not something you can use, then you might as well just keep using what you're using already. Alright, so the first thing we're going to be looking at is the control type. There are two main control type on eFootball Mobile. There is the touch and flick, which previously used to be known as the advanced control, and then there is the classic control, which has always been known as a classic control. Now, the main difference between these two type of control is for the touch and flick is a more advanced type of control. You don't have buttons on your screen you're going to press. You would have to input gestures that would register your command. Then for the classic controls, you have buttons on your screens with the actions that is written on them, so you know exactly what you're doing at any given time because you can see it right there. Now, right off the bat, it's important to mention that the touch and flick or the advanced control is the more difficult control among the two. Now, there are two main advantages of using the touch and flick control. The first one is that you don't have any buttons covering your screen, right? So you get the entire width of the pitch and you can see everything. The second one is that it's easier for manual cursor change, and we're going to get to that in a minute. Then the main disadvantage of the touch and flick control is that sometimes the gestures that you have to input for the action to be registered can be too many at times, and when you're dealing with a game that already has a level of delay to it, it can be quite frustrating. Now, moving on to the directional stick type, there are three main options here. You have the visible directional stick type where it's fixed, you have the one where it moves around with your finger, and then you have the one where the stick is completely turned off, so you're moving the players but you can't see anything there. I have mine to fixed. Now, I have played with both the movable and then the fixed, and I opt to go for the fixed because when I was using the movable, there are times where I'm trying to defend and I'm trying to run back with my players, and when it gets to the end, when you swipe all the way to like close to the end of your screen, your players just stop running. It happened to me too often, right? So that's like the main disadvantage of the movable. Whereas the disadvantage of the fixed is that at random times it will just stop responding, right? So you have to be wary of that. So when it stops responding, you take your hand off the screen and then you start using it again, right? So it's something you have to keep in mind. But personally, I prefer when it's fixed because then there is really no end of the screen, right? So when you're telling your players to run back, they run back and they don't just suddenly stop, which can be very, very frustrating because you just give your opponent free chance on goal. So when you're using the fixed directional stick type, you just have to pay attention to when it just stops, it just randomly stops responding. Right? It doesn't happen very often, but it happens once in a while, and it can be quite frustrating. Now, moving on to the cursor change, there are three types. There is assisted, semi-assisted, and then there is the manual. The assisted is most of the time they are going to be selecting your players for you and you don't really have much control over that. For the semi-auto, they are going to be select your players at random times, and then for the manual, you have full control over the player you select. This is the option I choose to go for. It has its advantages and then it has its disadvantages. The disadvantage is that due to lag and the delay in the game, sometimes your cursor change will be very, very slow. It can really get to you, but if you have that in mind, then you are going to be switching your cursor really, really fast so that it can register your input. Other than that, it can be very, very rewarding because most of the time you have full control over the players you select. And if you're able to completely master it, especially if you're using the touch and flick settings, it would massively improve your defending because then you'll be able to swipe to whoever you want on the pitch. You'll be able to select any player you want on the pitch to help you mark, to track runs, to call for second man press, to cut out passing lanes, right? Sometimes you just need to run back to cut out the passing lane. It'll also improve your ability to match up, right? To help you cut out passing lane when you're switching and you're switching really fast and really well. It can suffocate your opponent. you can look at this clip right here. You can see that I can actually select whoever I want on the pitch to kind of like guess where the next pass is going to be to cut out the passing lane. It would massively improve your ability to actually press your opponent, right? It will help you know when to press. It will help you know when to stay conservative. So the ability to switch is something that would actually help you a lot. So this is the reason why I have opted to go for the manual switch, because with the manual switch you can actually select whoever you want as opposed to the game doing everything for you. But personally, if I'm going to suggest anyone, especially if you're not a top player yet, I will still suggest that you use the assisted switching, assisted cursor change, because majority of the time the game is going to get the accurate person for you to defend. It's just sometimes at random times they are going to select the wrong man for you, but for the most part they'll be selecting the right man. So generally you should actually go for the assisted, unless you're a top player and you actually know how to switch very fast. Then in that case I would suggest that you use the manual cursor change. So the next thing we're going to be looking at is the input range. There are three main types. There is the narrow, there is the medium, and then there is the wide. Now I have mine at medium. I use medium and I'll tell you why. So the narrow input range, especially when you combine it with a fixed directional type stick, the thing I mentioned earlier where the left stick just stops working at random times, is going to be happening to you a lot frequently. With the wide, you would have difficulties dribbling and turning around, so the sweet spot for me is just that medium range. Now lastly, we're going to be looking at the cursor change controls, and if you're using touch and flick, there are two main type, which is the tap and then the double tap and flick. This one is a no-brainer, right? For the tap, when you want to select the nearest man, you just tap, right? For the double tap and flick, it's more advanced and it's much more better, right? So when you want to select the nearest man, you double tap, and when you want to select someone in a different direction, you swipe in that direction. So obviously the double tap and flick is much more resourceful and just overall better when you're defending. So that's basically it for my control settings. If you feel it's something that you can replicate, right, you can actually try it out. If it works for you, then fine, you should use it. But if it doesn't work for you, then I would suggest you go back to whatever you've been using. Now you can mess around with this. You can choose different options and see which one works. If people have different combination, you can see which one works for you and you go with that. Alright guys, that will be it for this video. If you have any questions about my control settings or anything you would like to know, just leave your question in the comment section below and I will respond to it as soon as I can. Do well to like, subscribe, share the video, and I'll catch you all on the next one. Peace.